Hi, I'm Susan Rice, one of Senator Obama's senior foreign policy advisors. I've been honored to work with Senator Obama from the very start of this campaign, and I first met him actually in 2004 when he was running for the Senate. I was helping Senator Kerry and Senator Edwards at that point, and had the opportunity to work with Senator Obama and his staff on a range of foreign policy issues. And I got to know him well when he came to Washington and took up his seat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He reached out to a number of foreign policy experts and scholars in Washington. I was then working at the Brookings Institution and had the opportunity to get to know him and his staff well. And it's been a real honor to serve him through the course of this campaign. The next President of the United States is going to inherit from George Bush an unprecedented series of messes, to use a technical term. These messes include a war in Iraq that should never have been authorized and never have been waged, Afghanistan and Pakistan, which are slipping into a very precarious and dangerous situation. Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are gaining strength, stronger than they've been at any point since 9/11. And indeed, Al-Qaeda is reconstituting a safe haven from which it is attacking Pakistan, Afghanistan, our forces in Afghanistan, NATO forces, and plotting attacks on our allies and the U.S. here. Iran is pursuing a nuclear program unabated. China is rising, we hope very much peacefully, but that can't be certain. And indeed, Russia has acted in ways in recent weeks to remind us that its intentions towards its neighbors are aggressive. There's been a genocide moving into its 6th year in Darfur, and this administration has done nothing effective to stop it. Our alliances and partnerships in the world have been tattered and frayed, and our standing is at an all-time low. Our military is stretched near to the breaking point. And the world looks at us and unfortunately has images of Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo, torture and suspension of habeas corpus in its sights. This is the America that Barack Obama will inherit. The American electorate has a profound choice to make. Do they want to extend the Bush-Cheney term 4 more years, doubling down on all the failed policies that have gotten us into this mess, as John McCain and Sarah Palin would? Or do the American people want genuine change? Do they want the visionary, intelligent, wise, tough, and smart leadership of Barack Obama and Joe Biden? Leadership that had the wisdom to see the folly of these terrible judgments that George Bush and Dick Cheney have made. Leadership that has the specific policies and indeed the vision to get us out of the ditch that George Bush has driven us into. That's a very stark choice. It'll be all but impossible for John McCain, who was a cheerleader for every one of the Bush failed foreign policies, to change course. Because you can't change course if you don't think you're on the wrong course. And that's the problem with John McCain. Barack Obama understands that we have got to extricate ourselves safely and responsibly from the war in Iraq. We've got to draw down our combat brigades at the pace of 1 to 2 brigades a month, getting our combat forces out within a period of roughly 16 months. Doing so will enable us to focus our effort and attention on rebuilding and repairing our military. Our men and women in the armed forces have done an extraordinary job. They have done everything and more that we have asked of them. But so many of them are now on their 3rd, 4th, even 5th tour of duty. And as a consequence, our military families are stretched, strained, and our Army and Marine Corps in particular are lacking in equipment, readiness, and can't sustain the burden that George Bush and John McCain have put on them for so many years. We also need to draw down our forces responsibly in Iraq so that we can put at least 2 additional combat brigades into Afghanistan and use that contribution to leverage a more effective contribution from our NATO partners, and to combine that increased security assistance to Afghanistan with development aid, with economic support, political support, eradication of the poppy, so that Afghanistan can become stabilized and the government there can can take back areas of control from the Taliban, provide for its people, and be a place where al-Qaeda can no longer operate. Equally, next door in Pakistan, we need a new policy. George Bush and John McCain were content to put all of our eggs in the basket of General Musharraf, the former Pakistani president, a dictator who didn't serve his people and didn't provide us with adequate cooperation in the war on terrorism. Barack Obama and Joe Biden have said for the longest time that this approach was failed. We shouldn't put all of our eggs into the basket of a dictator. Instead, we should invest in democracy and the aspirations of the Pakistani people and help those in Pakistan who have little in the way of infrastructure, education, health care, so that they are less vulnerable to the entreaties of extremists. They have proposed to triple our non-military assistance to Pakistan and focus that aid in those fragile border areas where the extremists are most active. And they've also said we ought to condition our military assistance to Pakistan on the Pakistani security forces making really concerted efforts to root out al-Qaeda and the Taliban. This is a kind of change in approach that we so badly need. But we also need to draw down our forces in Iraq to help the Iraqis achieve the political reconciliation and compromises that are essential to Iraq's long-term stability. The surge was intended to give space so that the Iraqi parties could come together and reconcile. Well, the surge, combined with the Sunni awakening, new counterinsurgency tactics, and indeed the Shia militia agreeing to a ceasefire, have all combined to result in a welcome reduction in violence. But that reduction in violence has not been met by a comparable improvement in the political reconciliation among the parties. They remain divided on oil sharing, on an electoral law, on key issues that are at the core of their dispute. Barack Obama's view is that the best way to encourage, indeed to catalyze, the Iraqi parties to compromise is not to give them an indefinite blank check, stay there as a security blanket at the cost of $10 billion a month, while the Iraqis sit on a $79 billion surplus, as John McCain would have us do. John McCain would have us stay in permanent bases in Iraq indefinitely. Barack Obama's plan is very different. He says, let's convey to the Iraqis that we are going to withdraw safely and responsibly on a predictable timetable, and let's help them use that window of opportunity to come together to resolve their differences, to catalyze change rather than stay passively and await change that might occur one day, as John McCain would. Interestingly, the Iraqis are now saying that's exactly what they want. They want a clear timetable for the withdrawal of our forces, and their timetable is not dissimilar to Barack Obama's. The Bush administration, after resisting a timetable for so long, has reluctantly agreed. Only John McCain remains an outlier, insisting on permanent bases and an indefinite U.S. presence, even though the Iraqis don't want it, and it's their country, and even though the American people and our interests are not well served by staying there indefinitely. Barack Obama and Joe Biden will bring the kind of change we need, extricating ourselves from these messes that the Bush administration has gotten us into, and then leading us to a place of greater security and prosperity. Barack Obama is not running simply to clean up the messes that George Bush has left him, as important as that is. He's running also to leave our country and the world a better place by weaning us off of dependence on foreign oil with concrete, feasible plans to get us out from under the dictators who are controlling oil around the world. This is not something we can accomplish simply by drilling offshore. We need alternative sources of energy, renewable sources, and diversifying our economy, allowing us to be a leader in green technology so that we can create 5 million new jobs in this country through an investment in over 10 years of $150 billion in renewable clean energy alternatives. That's Barack Obama's plan. He recognizes that there's no silver bullet in the challenge of getting our dependence of foreign oil ended, and indeed in tackling the challenge of climate change. We have to employ all different methods: wind, solar, cellulosic biofuels, nuclear, clean coal. But most of all, we need to reduce our consumption, something you rarely hear John McCain talk about. That will lead us to a place of greater strength and security and a greater ability to leave to our children a safe and healthy planet. Barack Obama is also committed to bringing peace to parts of the world that have suffered for so long. He will make peace in the Middle East, peace between Israel and the Palestinians, a top priority of his administration from his earliest days in office. He won't wait until year 7 to take up this challenge. He will do as Israel and the Palestinians have asked of us, which is to continue to help them in their efforts to reach a two-state solution where a Jewish state of Israel and a democratic Palestine can live side by side in peace and security. Barack Obama is also committed to helping to end the genocide in Darfur. 6 years going into 6 years of killing and maiming, and the Sudanese government still is not facing any meaningful pressure from the United States or the international community. Barack Obama and Joe Biden believe that tougher sanctions, combined with real assistance to help the UN African Union peacekeeping force stand up and protect civilians, is long overdue. These are among the important changes that Barack Obama and Joe Biden will bring. There are many, many more, and I look forward to discussing them with you in our online chat. But the choice facing you and the American people could not be more stark. It's more of the same versus dramatic change to get us out of the ditch that George Bush has driven us into, back on the road, and moving down a road in a direction that's positive and future-oriented. Barack Obama and Joe Biden understand the challenges of the 21st century. They recognize that this is not the Vietnam era, the Cold War, or the 20th century. We cannot, in dealing with Russia, for example, go back to the Cold War. We cannot be so simple as to assume that this new Russia, integrated into the global economy, non-ideological and yet aggressive, is the very same as the former Soviet Union. We can't put a round peg from the 20th century into the square hole that is the 21st century. We need new thinking, leadership that is in touch with today's realities, leadership that recognizes that increasingly the nature of the threats we face are not only from states, but are transnational in nature. Things like terrorism, like weapons of mass destruction, cyber attacks, genocide, disease, climate change, and environmental degradation. These challenges are those of the sort that can arise in any part of the planet and spread instantly to any other part of the planet. To tackle these challenges, we need strong partnerships with other countries and other peoples. Partnerships based on a willingness and an ability to cooperate effectively with us on these global challenges. That means we need strong alliances again. John McCain called our allies, France and Germany, adversaries in the run-up to the Iraq War because he didn't agree with their views on Iraq. If we view our allies as adversaries, we'll be incapable of tackling these 21st century challenges effectively. We need as many willing partners as we can muster, and we need leadership that will be embraced and respected by the world again. We have a choice on November 4th, but the world also has a choice. Because on January 20th, 2009, when the next President of the United States puts his hand on the Bible and swears to uphold the Constitution of the United States, it won't be just Americans watching. The world will be watching as well. And the world will make a judgment. They will give the United States a fleeting look, perhaps a final look, to determine if we have changed. Have we learned from our mistakes? Are we ready to lead again in a manner that they can trust and respect? Or have we decided on more of the same? The man we have standing up there on January 20th will send the world the most powerful signal as to whether America is back or America remains on the wrong track. So you decide, and I hope very much that you'll join with us in supporting Barack Obama and Joe Biden in making the change that we so fundamentally need, not only at home, but in our relationships with the rest of the world. Thank you very much.